Our first 2 points are foundational when it comes to understanding the purpose, importance, and reliability of the Bible. The Bible ties its historical claims and the relationship of God to history into a single package of religious claims. This brings us to our third point. The Bible's unmatched accuracy as an historical record provides strong supporting evidence for the accuracy of its religious claims.
God's intervention in historical events provides evidence for His existence. We can use the patriarch Abraham as an example of this. Let's imagine for a moment that Abraham never existed, and that some archaeological or written evidence was found demonstrating that the nation of Israel was originally formed from nothing more than a collection of wandering tribes in the ancient Middle East. If Abraham never existed, then the stories about Abraham in the Bible could be easily dismissed as any other ancient legend. In fact, the very foundation of Judaism and Christianity would fall apart completely. In other words, if the Bible's claims about Abraham were proven to be untrue or fictitious, then every religious claim based upon the faith of Abraham would also be based upon fiction and would be ultimately meaningless. The Bible's reliability as a religious document is directly related to its reliability as an historical document. If one side of the record fails, the other fails with it. Considering such a hypothetical scenario like this might bring the question to mind, how can I know that the Bible's stories are part of real history and not a religious invention? The late Bible historian Millar Burrows of Yale University answered this question in this way. The Bible is supported by archaeological evidence again and again. On the whole, there can be no question that the results of excavation have increased the respect of scholars for the Bible as a collection of historical documents. Archaeological data shows that the Bible fits into the framework of history as only a genuine product of ancient life could do. If the historical events God intervened in really did happen, then what does that tell you about God's character? What does it tell you about the Bible's religious claims? In the first part of this study, we've examined 3 things about the past and the Bible. Let's review them. Number 1, the Bible records verifiable historical events. Number 2, the Bible's historical events are directly linked to God's activity in history. And 3, the Bible's unmatched accuracy as an historical record provides strong supporting evidence for the accuracy of its religious claims.
As in all of our studies together, the principles that we learn as we begin our study are applied to each new area that we examine. In this case, our first 3 principles about the Bible and the past will now be applied to what the Bible has to say about the future. There is a saying that I like to share with people sometimes that helps in evaluating some of the more wild religious claims that certain spiritual leaders sometimes make. And it's this: you cannot know the future unless you've been there. The Bible does more than record historical events. It also records future historical events. The only way this is possible is if the God who authors history reveals to us what He has already seen and already experienced in our future. So let's proceed to our first point. The Bible records verifiable future events.
It's very important to pay attention to the specific language being used in this part of the lesson. The Bible does not record predictions of what may happen in the future. Rather, the Bible claims to contain a record of actual future history that can be verified as it happens. Unlike the normal records of history which are written about the past, the Bible provides details on world events yet to come. We call this class of writings in the Bible prophecy. Old Testament prophets in the Bible often wrote about events that were in their near or distant future, sometimes hundreds or thousands of years in the future. Let's look at one such prophecy written in the Bible more than 2,700 years ago that was fulfilled in our lifetime. As the Lord lives who brought up and led back the descendants of the household of Israel, they will live on their own soil. Consider also this passage about Israel's reestablishment as a nation from the prophet Ezekiel, written about 570 BC, more than 2,500 years ago. I will multiply men on you, all the house of Israel, all of it, and the cities will be inhabited, and the waste places rebuilt. And I will cause you to be inhabited as you were formerly, and will treat you better than at the first. When were these prophecies fulfilled? Beginning in the early 20th century, the Jewish people began returning to the land of Palestine after a nearly 2,000-year absence. Its land was wasting away and unfruitful. But by 1948, Israel had been reestablished as a sovereign nation and is regarded as one of the most varied and fruitful lands in all of the Middle East. This is just one of the many examples in the Bible of future events written about thousands of years ago, some still waiting to be fulfilled, waiting for us to verify their accuracy through contemporary observation. Of the many hundreds of prophecies in the Bible, not a single one has failed to come true according to all that was written. Bible prophecy, in fact, may be one of the strongest internal evidences that the Bible's author is the God who authors and steers history for His own purposes and for our benefit.
This brings us to our next point about God's role in the future history God recorded in the Bible. The Bible's record of future history is directly linked to God's future activity.
Some people believe in religious leaders that can predict the future. But the Bible is different. It records future history as if it had already happened, from the perspective of God actively taking part in that history. God knows the future and reveals portions of it to us. Just as God wanted His people to look at His intervention in the past and thus rely upon Him for their future, so too God provides an extra reason for man to trust Him by telling us the most important things we need to know about the future. By telling us about the future, God is demonstrating His love for us. Without a doubt, the most important prophecies in the Old Testament about the future were about the first and second comings of Jesus Christ. More than 700 years before Jesus was born, the prophet Isaiah revealed details about the death of Jesus for our sins during His first coming. Surely our griefs He Himself bore, and our sorrows He carried. Yet we ourselves esteemed Him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But He was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening of our well-being fell upon Him, and by His scourges we are healed. All of us like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way. But the Lord caused the iniquity of us all to fall on Him. The Bible also reveals details about the second coming of Jesus, a day which is yet to come in our future. In fact, the New Testament contains more than 300 references to the future second coming of Jesus Christ.
Our third point wraps the Bible's record of future events up with its religious claims of authority. Just as the Bible does not record past history to simply be informative, but to provide evidence for God's existence, so too, the Bible's record of future history provides supportive evidence for its religious claims.